Hello friends. Today we are going to discuss about serial killers. I am Dr. Suresh Badadmat, Professor of Psychiatry, working at National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bangalore. In this video, I'll be discussing about serial killers, how to define serial killing, how to differentiate from other types of killing such as mass killing, spree killing, typology of serial killers, what is the prevalence, motive, and the very act of serial killing will be discussed in this video. Before we move further, I request my audience to scan this QR code to access quality content on mental health and psychiatry. And also request the audience, if you like this channel, please do subscribe. What is serial killer? The first term which was used was chain killer by Reinhardt in 1957. According to Reinhardt, he described the killers who would slaughter and leave a chain of victims behind them. Later, in 1970s, FBI investigator Robert Ressler coined the term serial killer. Although serial killer is a misnomer, it should have been serial murderer. Although serial killing is very rare, but it evokes tremendous amount of emotions, fear, anger, frustration, sadness, excitement, media frenzy attacks, public attention, TRP rating, and also it will test the competency of the investigating agency, that is, the police. In all these phenomena, public fear, TRP overdrive, social media will add to the public hysteria. But however, before we move further, one need to differentiate between serial killer, mass murderer, spree killing, and terrorism. What is serial killer? In the past 4 decades, multiple definition of serial killer or serial murderer was given. It was given by law enforcement agencies, clinicians such as psychiatrists, academia, researchers. There is not even a single one accepted definition for serial killer. While majority of this definition given have certain commonalities, themes, they differ from specific requirements such as number of murder, number of victims, the type of murderer, motivation, the time duration between the 2 episodes of killing, and various other environmental aspects have been considered. Let's define serial killer. A serial killer is an individual who has committed a series of 2 or more murders in a separate incidents, typically involving some degree of psychological and emotional gratification. These murders are often committed over a period of time with a cooling period between each crime. This is very specific. That means between the 2 episodes of murders, there should be a cooling period. As per the FBI definition of serial killer, it should be repetitive in nature, that is more than 2 killing. It should be premeditated or semi-premeditated nature. That means to some extent there should be planning. The motivation behind the killing can be emotional, sexual, financial, and various other reasons. Invariably, the serial killer will have ritualistic behavior, that is signature, the way they murder the victim. And invariably between the 2 episodes, the serial killer returns back to his daily routine, and many a time it is very difficult to identify the monster is along with us in the community. Hence, that cooling period is an essential component to identify a serial killer? In 1998, a federal law of United States Congress gave an important definition of serial killer in the legislation Protection of Children from Sexual Predator Act of 1998. As per this legislation of US, the serial killer was defined as a series of 3 or more killing, not less than one of which was committed within the United States, having common characteristics such as to suggest the reasonable possibility that the crimes were committed by the same actor or actors. This definition clearly mentions it can be a single person or else one or two people can be involved in serial killing, whether it should be a serial killers or chain killers. The well-known serial killers of US, Ted Bundy, who is sexually sadistic psychopath, Dennis Rader, who called as BTK killer. BTK means bind, torture, and kill. Richard Ramirez is a night stalker. He used to kill brutally his victims. Gary Ridgway, Green River Killer. Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy. Similarly, we also have Indian serial killers such as Umesh Reddy, Mohan Kumar, Chandrakant Jha, and even female serial killers are also known. Alan Warnos, Beverly L. Allitt, and Kempamma. These are well-known serial killers. Now let's differentiate serial killers from other types of killing. Let's differentiate from mass murderer. Mass murder is defined as the number of murders, 4 or more, occurring during the same incident, with no distinctive period between the murders. That means there is no cooling period. Usually, this type of incident concludes with the perpetrator committing suicide or neutralizing by the police. These events typically involve single location where the killer murderer a number of victims in an ongoing incident. The best example is in US, school mass killing or university campus mass killing. Many times, party mass killing is well known. They go on shooting the innocent victims. If you look at the mass shooting in US, when assault weapon was banned, the number of incidents were less. When this ban was lifted, the number of workplace mass shooting, school colleges mass shooting, entertainment place mass shooting increased phenomenally. Here, you should remember there is no cooling off period. In a single episode of killing, they will kill more than 4 people, innocent victims, either at the workplace or in the school or college. Let's look into the spree murder. In this, a series of killings carried out by an individual or a group of individuals over a relative short period of time and in multiple locations. These killings are usually perpetrated in a random or a semi-random fashion without a cooling off period between the murders. Here, many of these individuals are psychopaths. They do this pre-murder just for a thrill or want to kill people by just like hunting. Another important is terrorism. Terrorism involves act of violence or the credible threat of violence intended to create fear, intimidate, or coerce a population, government, or any organization which is usually driven by political, ideological, religious, or social motivations. There is no single accepted definition, although United Nations is proposing a convention which is called as Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism, which is called as CCIT, is yet to be agreed and notified in the United Nations. Unfortunately, the definition of terrorism is not being accepted across the world. The reason, it is a very complex phenomena. There may be involvement of state actors and also non-state actors. That means the people from the government may be involved or non-governmental agencies also can be involved. If you look at the world at this point of time, you can see terrorism from the religious angle is increasing. Intolerance towards other religion is becoming minimal, and with the ideology of our own religion, people are killing. That's the best example of terrorism. Here, the terrorism involves deliberate targeting of civilians or non combatants or children and women to maximize the psychological impact and generate fear in the broader audience. This terrorism is done invariably by a group of people, and the act can be carried out by a single person. The complete support will be from the ideological group, and they would like to see maximum damage, multiple random victims, innocent children, women will be killed, and the main goal is to instill fear in the larger population. Many a time, the non-state actors are involved. However, many countries would like to use state actors to propagate terrorism against other country. This is unfortunate in a civilian world, but however, it is completely different from serial killers. Let's look into the typology of serial killers. As per the FBI investigation, Behavioral Analysis Unit has categorized serial killers into two types: organized and disorganized serial killers. Organized serial killers tend to be methodical, bring their own weapon. Invariably, they carry a toolbox to commit crime. They spend time in rehearsing, clean the crime scene, systematically remove the evidence, plan their crime carefully. Whereas, on the other hand, disorganized serial killers are impulsive, they have no planning, and leave the crime scene in a chaotic manner. Serial killers also has been divided as per visionary, mission, or power. Invariably, the person with visionary means who believes in vision or hallucination, I can call it as hearing of voices, seeing of things, and these voices and hallucination push them to commit crime. Hence, they are called as visionary or psychotic in nature. This is very, very rare. Next one is mission oriented. In this, the serial killers are motivated by a perceived mission or goal, such as cleansing the society or eliminating certain types of people. They are labeled as mission oriented. The best example is the Yorkshire Ripper wanted to kill all commercial sex workers. So that is mission oriented serial killer. The next one is hedonistic type. Here, the serial killers are lust, that is, sexual gratification, is the reason for killing. The act of killing itself gives them orgasm. It's not the sex. Invariably, the sex is killing for them, or else it is a thrill killer, we can call it as. And there is another important group, power or control oriented killers. These serial killers are fascinated by sadism, masochism, and crave complete control over the victim. The best example for this is Jeffrey Dahmer, who used to take the young victims, male victims, to his apartment. He used to spike them with the drinks, burr hole their skull with a drill machine, and he used to put various chemicals into their brain so that he would like to have control over them by making them as a zombie. Here he was very clear. He wanted to have a sheer dominance over another person to use them as a sex toy. The other typology is thrill versus profit versus revenge. Thrill is nothing but killing for the sake of being on the edge. It is a hedonistic. Murder for profit is invariably drug related, financial related. It can be easily called as underworld people who kill people for profit. Predatory type is thrill seeking. In US, the people used to go in the night just randomly shooting at people. It's more of thrill seeking. Family slayings, it is revenge and aggression based killing. The other typology was considered as traveling based serial killing, local versus place. Traveling serial killers move from one geography to another in search of victim to avoid detection by crossing one jurisdiction to another. A best example would be there were many serial killers who used to travel on lorry as a drivers whenever they get an opportunity. In a one state, they used to kill and move to the another state. The local police would be wondering who did this heinous crime. By that time, they would have crossed from one police station jurisdiction from one state to another state. Hence, they were considered as traveling serial killers. It's very difficult to catch them. Local serial killers operate within the defined geographic areas. The reason these are the people who find comfort being in a certain area, they know this area very well, and they have power in their hand, they have resources in their hand, so that they can dispose the body easily and they become uncomfortable in unfamiliar surroundings. Place specific serial killers, they do killing only in certain areas or situation. For example, as I mentioned earlier, Peter Cutcliffe used to kill commercial sex workers in red light area. Let's look into the Diet's 5 typology of serial killers. First one is psychopathic sexual sadists. Here, the killing is basically with sadism, that is, by involving huge amount of pain on the victim or else hitting them, mutilating them, and also killing them. This very phenomena of killing is sexually arousal to them and they reach orgasm. It's not the sexual activity itself. The killing itself is a sexual activity to them. The next one is crime spree killers. Bonnie and Clyde can be considered as a crime spree killer who used to go on shooting people. Functionary of organized crime operation or syndicates. These are contract killers or gangs involved in killing for for the profit purposes. Custodial, poisoners and asphyxiations. Here, the people such as nurse, doctors would believe by killing people, they are giving freedom from the suffering. The best example would be the nurse, the Charles Cullen, who had killed more than 300 people in US. The final one is probably psychotic serial killer. David Berkowitz can be considered as a psychotic serial killer. But however, I would like to place on record serial killers are not severely mentally ill. They do killing for the sake of killing. They do not have severe mental illness. Let's look at the prevalence of serial killing. The various studies have suggested the serial homicide accounts for less than 1% of the homicide across the nation. But however, the fascination for serial killers gives wide publicity, increased TRP rating, and also challenges the investigating agency. Although these serial killers appears to be from the Western literature or culture, but it is seen in all population across the world, across the continent, and every society has serial murderers. But however, the Western mass media is responsible for celebritization, giving celebrity status to the serial murderers, going and doing investigation, interviewing them for the sake of money, and TRP has given the celebrity status to these serial killers. As I mentioned, India also has its share of serial killers. Many a time they do not come into media attention. The simple reason many a time police do not leak this information, or else poor investigation by the police may not link one episode of killing to another. Many a time this non-availability of nationwide database for serious offenses decreases the possibility of getting the serial killer, or else before the serial killer commits other crime, he is apprehended. Invariably in India, it is the later part which plays a role. That means many a time the police do not know there is a serial killer operating across jurisdiction. The main reason is non-availability of a huge database connecting all police stations across the state, across the nation. Let's look into the personality profile of serial killers. The most commonest type of personality, that is around 60 to 70% of serial killers, are antisocial personality disorder, or simply called as psychopaths, narcissistic, and paranoid personality disorder. Invariably, the combination of three are very common. The antisocial personality disorder, psychopathic trait, also called as dissocial trait, are 30 to 80%. Invariably, this antisocial personality disorder have three important characteristics. They have affective deficits, that means emotional deficits, lack of empathy. They do not have guilt. They do not have remorse. They enjoy seeing blood. They enjoy seeing suffering. They enjoy inflicting pain on others. Second one is interpersonal deficit. They have shallow emotions. They manipulate people. Although you can find them very charming, they are very emotional. It looks, but they're manipulating people. Invariably, they show emotions with regard to aggression, frustration, and also instilling fears in others. Third one is behavioral deficits. Invariably, they have impulsivity, behaviors such as aggression, anger, irritability, and also criminal versatility is known. So, my dear friends, the serial killer personality types has three important deficits: emotional deficits or affective deficit, interpersonal deficits, and behavioral deficits. Moving further, narcissistic personality disorder. Here, some of the serial killers known to have inflated sense of self-importance. I am the one. I can challenge the police. Nobody can catch me. I am very intelligent. I need to be admired. I can challenge FBI. I can challenge CBI. I can beat the police. I can commit crime anywhere, anytime, any place by challenging the police. Their thinking is self centered and self behavior. These are narcissistic personality disorder, paranoid personality disorder. These are very suspicious. They bear grudges. They tend to interpret neutral stimuli as hostile. persistent tendency to self reference, tenacious sense of personal rights is known in paranoid personality disorder. Few studies have also spoken about schizoid personality disorder and compulsive traits. Invariably, the mixture of above symptoms and personality traits are seen in serial killers. In simple, there is not a single one personality which have been attributed to serial killers. However, most of them have psychopathic personality or else antisocial personality disorder. However, you also need to know not all violent offenders are psychopaths. At the same time, not all psychopaths are violent offenders. Please remember this. There is not a single personality which indicates towards serial killers, the commonest being the antisocial personality disorder. Let's look into the psychiatric disorder. The reason being, the media says most of the serial killers are mentally ill. Is it true? Let's discuss. The current evidence clearly says rarely serial killers have psychiatric illness, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or autism. Out of 10 serial killers, most probably one of them may have serious mental disorder. That means it is very less than 10%. However, some of the serial killers had organic brain injury, such as traumatic brain injury, frontal lobe tumors, and epilepsy, was noted. At the same time, please remember all head injuries does not cause serial killers. All frontal lobe tumors do not cause serial killers. Few serial killers may indulge in violence under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or combination of alcohol and drugs. Invariably, serial killers are sexual psychopaths with deep criminality embedded in their personality. They clearly have good connection with reality. They know what is right and wrong. They plan the act. They try to destroy the evidence. They are unable to control their impulses, which are sexual in nature. They want to commit the crime to see the blood, the suffering of the other person. They want to have a sheer dominance over the victim. They enjoy, fantasize, achieve orgasm by killing people. The classic. Invariably, they have loss of empathy, no regret, no remorse, no guilt. Invariably, since it is not a psychiatric disorder, there is no treatment available for the sexually sadistic psychopaths who become serial killers. But however, serial killers and paraphilia are related. Paraphilia means these are sexual disorders which are recurrent, deviant fantasies, urges, and behaviors. Paraphilia refers to pattern of sexual behavior or arousals characterized by atypical, unconventional preference which usually society does not accommodates. They are considered deviant according to the societal norms, falling outside the outer limit of the sexual behavior in continuum. The most common type of paraphilia in serial killers is sadism, that means inflicting pain, suffering on the victim. Various studies have said 40 to 90% of the serial killer invariably have sadism. What are the other different types of paraphilias which accompany with the serial killers? The most common is sadism, that is inflicting pain on the victim, masochism. Here, the perpetrator wants suffering on himself. He will ask the victim to hit him. Invariably, the serial killers will have combination of both sadism and masochism. Transvestism. Here, the cross-dressing occurs. The wear, they wear the clothes of the other gender. They enjoy wearing. Many a time they enjoy wearing the victim's undergarments, and they do ejaculate on the clothes. This cross-dressing was clean was seen clearly in Umesh Reddy, the serial killer. Many a time, some of the paraphilias are fetishism, that is, going and stealing the woman undergarments. There are few female paraphilias which are fetishism. They go and steal men's underwear. Voyeurism, also called as peeping tom, watching other people indulging in their private sexual activity. Pedophilia, having sex with children. Fetishism is basically going and getting the undergarments of the opposite sex. Exhibitionism, as the word says, exhibiting private parts to the other gender or to the society. Bestiality, having sex with the animals. Cannibalism, eating human flesh. Necrophilia, having sex with the dead bodies. Picorism, here the person gets orgasm by pricking, stabbing other people. Telephone scatologia is a interesting phenomena which was noted in US. Here the person does random phone calls to the other person and indulge in shouting at them, talking vulgar words, and this is telephone scatologia. And many a time they may have gender identity disorder. However, these are various paraphilias, and invariably all of them will not be there. Combination of paraphilias are seen in serial killers, the most common being sadism. As studies have clearly said that invariably serial killers will have at least 2 to 3 paraphilias. Prentke and his colleagues analyzed 25 serial killers. They found 75% of them having voyeurism, that is, going and watching other people indulging in sex. Fetishism, going and stealing undergarments of other gender. Cross-dressing, and finally, indecent exposure was noted in serial killers. And you need to know about every sadist is a masochist and every masochist is a sadist. That means both come together. Very rarely it comes individual. Let's look into the recidivism. Cantor and his colleagues in 1996 analyzed the background of serial killers and found that 75% of the serial killers were previously convicted for crimes, and half of them were arrested as juveniles. That clearly indicates there was a past history of crime. Unfortunately, the police did not recognize these people. These findings, along with Hubbard and Macross in 2001, clearly said the same thing. They replicated 79% of the serial killers had arrest and previous conviction. Please remember, two-thirds of them were already arrested by the police. Hence, the need for database of these serious offenders, sexual offenders, needs to be made available across the nation, if required, across the country, across the continent. Let's look into the motive for serial killing. For most part, serial murder involves strange people or the strangers. There is no visible relationship between the offender and the victim. That means it is not like any other default homicide investigation. Since the serial killer will choose unknown people, the motive is not evident at all. This clearly differentiates between the serial killing and the homicide investigation. Serial murder crime scene can be very bizarre in future and difficult to identify the motive at times. The behavior of the serial murderer at crime scene may evolve through the series of killing. Invariably, in the first killing, they may find it is very bizarre. Overkilling is seen, many stab wounds, and very bizarre. But if they are able to investigate other Over a period of time, the crime scene will evolve, the signature mark of the killing will be seen, and you will be able to see the manifestation of interaction between the offender, victim, and the environment. Linking the serial killing can be done. But however, regardless of the motive, serial murderers commit crime because they want to do it. The pleasure of killing makes them to go and kill. Serial offenders select the victim regardless of the category. It is based on availability, vulnerability, and their desirability at that time. Many of the studies have said the serial killer invariably there will be reason for doing it. The commonest may be anger, power, sexual pleasure, thrill to kill people, many a time ideology for killing certain group of people, financial gain, criminal underworld, and the combination of above can be the reason for committing a crime. The motive for serial killing is entirely different from homicidal investigation which occurs in normal population. If any serial murder investigation, the focus should be on identifying the killing. In serial killing, you should not focus on the motive. If you focus on the motive, it will derail the investigation process. In a normal homicide, the motive will indicate the person who has committed the crime. In serial killing, the motive will derail completely. Hence, do not go by the motive. The motive in serial killing is very bizarre. It is the very act of committing the heinous crime is the motive. Deviant sexual fantasies, having a complete dominance over the victim, sadism, paraphilias, push them to commit these violent sexual offenses. Let's discuss about the act of serial killing. The act of serial killing has been attributed to various sexual fantasies. Let's understand what is fantasy. As per the researcher Prantke and his colleagues in 1989, they defined fantasies. As per the Prantke's, it is an elaborated set of cognitions. Cognitions is thoughts characterized by preoccupation with these thoughts or rehearsing these fantasies in their mind, which are anchored in their emotions and originating in daydreams. These sexual fantasies specifically involve cognitions or images of sexually arousing or erotic in nature. Generally, sexual fantasies are common in general public. But however, the content of these fantasies plays an important role. Invariably, the sadistic fantasy, paraphilia fantasies are very common, which may lead to serial killing. Many a time, even few people do have sadistic fantasy, paraphilia fantasies. However, just because having fantasies will not lead them to serial killer. The point of break, that is, the person who acts on these sadistic fantasies, and when they start acting on this fantasies, will lead to serial killing. If they act upon these impulses to fulfill their fantasies, invariably they end up killing many people. Invariably, the Ted Bundy assessors, the psychologist, clearly said, if you are the person who are killing, you will not be able to stop these killings because he wanted to enjoy doing that. That is what the Ted Bundy was. Each sexual acts of killing people to fulfill their fantasies and paraphilias will lead them to enact in particular way so that they enjoy doing this. Once they do it, they want to do it many times, many a time. Whenever they are frustrated, whenever there is a stress, they want to release this stress by engaging in this fantasy by killing people. It is not the fantasy which kills people, it is the acting upon this sexual fantasies, paraphilias, unable to control these fantasies, leads him to do serial killing. But however, please understand, controlling their impulses doesn't mean they are unable to know what they are doing. They know what they are doing. They will plan it. They are in touch with reality. They will take the victim to the secluded place. They will choose the victim. They will inflict pain. They will kill them for their sexual gratification. They will dispose the body. That doesn't mean they are unable to control their impulses. The act of killing makes them to do this. Offenders usually engage in try-out attacks. They go and attack the victims. In initial period, they do not know and they are not mastered it. And these precursors, if they are let go and they succeed in killing one person, they end up killing many people. Initially, the attacks are called as tryout attacks. It is difficult for the offenders to very exactly match their sadistic fantasies. Hence, when they kill initially, their fantasies may fulfill maybe 50 to 60%. They want to enjoy up to 100%. Hence, the second time they kill and they match it up to maybe 80%. And the engaging in this 100% of sexual fantasy, which is deviant, which leads to orgasm, will push them to commit crime very often, invariably weekly once, maybe many times in a week. Wrestlers and his colleague theorized that sexual murderers are obsessed by their fantasies, and any failure to enact them exactly as they're imagined will make them to repeat the act at the earliest. Imagine a serial killer has a paraphilia and fantasizing to kill people the way he wants. If it does not matches it to his fantasy during first killing, he may do it second time. Unfortunately, if they match, they engage in doing it so that they want to have this pleasure of killing other people. Hence, my dear friends, the killing itself becomes a reinforcement for the pleasure. The fantasy could eventually develop into violence, killing people, and killing sexual partners, and invariably enjoying this kind of killing is common in serial killers. In any way, please understand, the motive is the fantasies, the act of impulses, fulfilling their gratification. They are not severely mentally ill. The act of killing itself is the pleasure for them. Invariably, as I mentioned earlier, the victims are strangers and they kill by strangulation. Why it is strangulation? Because it is a process of killing people makes them enjoy. So they do not kill the people instantaneously. Invariably, they catch the victim, take them to a secluded place, and they strangulate over a period of time. They torture the victim. They enjoy by inflicting pain on the victim. Here, the pleasure is in the process of killing people. Hence, invariably, they do strangulation. Many a time, even after killing, they would like to engage in sexual activity with the dead body. That is necrophilia. Many a time, they go back to that place where they have committed the crime and they re-fantasize, they relive the way they have done the crime, and they masturbate there. This is well known in serial killers. It is proposed that use of strangulation is a means of prolonging, spending time with the victim, enjoying the sadistic suffering, enjoying the sheer having a power over the victim, and this prolonged strangulation enhance their pleasure, control over the victim, and ejaculating. Hence, the strangulation is the commonest method of killing in serial killers. And invariably, few of them have necrophilia and mutilating body for enjoyment or else dispose of the body. Here, in the act of serial killing, the pleasure of complete domination over the another person is the very essence of sadistic drive. Please remember this. The motive can be just having a sheer power over the another person. There was an interesting study done by Higgs and colleagues. This was published in 2015 in Sexual Abuse, a journal for research and treatment. The title of the study was Towards Identification of Serial Killer, a comparison of sexual killers engaging in post-mortem sexual interference and non-homicide sexual aggressors. This was a very interesting study. Here, the authors did compare the serial killers, which are 48 in number, and looking at their post-mortem interference. That means, did they do sex with the dead bodies? And what type of activity did and how they killed their victims? If you look at the table, 70% of them were strangulation either by manual or by ligature. And invariably, after the death, they involved in sexual activity with the dead bodies. So, my dear friends, serial killers involve in strangulation, enjoying the death by strangulating them, and once they are killed, they enjoy having sex with the dead body. To conclude, serial killer is an individual who has committed a series of 2 or more murders in a separate incident, typically involving some degree of psychological and emotional gratification. There needs to be a cooling period between the 2 episodes of killing. The motive can be anger, power, dominance over the others, thrill, sexual sadistic behavior, ideology, financial gain, or combination of above. The communist personality was known was psychopathic, and having paraphilia of sadism is a hallmark of serial killers. The strangulation was the most common method of killing by the serial killers, indicating they enjoyed the sadism over the victim. Choosing the stranger is very difficult to investigate because you will not be able to connect the victim with the serial killer. Absence of motive, which is commonly seen in a homicidal investigation, is missing in serial killers. And hence, in serial killing, do not focus on the motive. You need to focus on catching the serial killer. Very rarely, serial killers have mental illness. Most of the people who are normal, who have psychopathy, deviant sexual behavior, paraphilia such as sadism, are commonly seen in serial killers. Majority of the serial killers are in touch with reality. They know what they are doing. Their reasoning power is well preserved. They plan their act. They kill the victim for their gratification. They destroy the evidence, and they are among the common public. And it is very difficult to identify the serial killers. To know more about the serial killers, psychological profiling, behavioral profiling, and etiology of serial killers, please to subscribe to my channel to know about these serial killers so that we can catch them and prevent them doing this heinous crime. Thank you very much for your valuable time. Stay safe.